I'm Brian Hiatt. This is Rolling Stone Music Now. So we are more than halfway through the year, and I thought it would be a good time to start looking back at some of the best music of 2024 so far. To do that, I'm going to have some of my Rolling Stone colleagues weigh in on their genres of choice. And we're going to start today with Mankaprr Conteh, who made a great list of her favorite albums and songs of 2024 so far. So Mankaprr, basically, we're just going to talk about the music you've loved so far this year. There's some hip-hop, there's some Afropop, there's some R&B, there's some things that we've talked about on the pod already this year and some things we haven't. A lot of things I heard and some things I missed, so I'm really glad that you took the time to put this together for us. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited. I'm glad that this gave me a chance to reflect on what music has been like this year. It's been a great year. Music has been top notch this year. Yeah,
there's a lot of good stuff all over. And we'll start with an album I think should, both for the merits of the album itself and due to the past snubbing of the artist who made it, it should win Album of the Year. Cowboy Carter by Beyoncé.
2 hands to heaven, I pray, please forgive my soul. Lovely daggers pierce my heart many moons ago.
I listened to it a ton when it first came out. I listened to it again just 2 weeks ago on a road trip from start to finish, and it really held up, and I think you think so as well.
Yeah, I think it's really held up. I think unlike Renaissance or Self-Titled or Lemonade, I don't think it's held on to the zeitgeist the way that Beyonce albums normally do. But I do think it's incredible. And I think technically it's some of her I think it's her best work. I think every time Beyonce releases something, it is her best work. Like Lemonade looks like nothing in comparison, I think, to this. Even
I wouldn't go that far, but I hear you.
But I'm saying it's like a compliment to her. Like for you to make something, an album that is objectively that great, and then make 2 albums that blow it out of the water is crazy to me. And it just speaks to her genius as an artist. I think that every song holds up. I think that it is long for a one sit down listen, but now that I get to listen to it leisurely and I just listen to a few songs here or a few songs there, there's something for every mood. And she's just, her singing, the layering, the production, it's just incredible. It's an incredible body of work.
Yeah, and it's extremely cohesive and extremely deliberate in its storytelling, in the track listing, in the way everything's laid out, in its divisions between a side 1 and side 2 kind of situation. It's extremely conceptual. It has a lot to say. I mean, it's kind of, they talk about movies being Oscar bait. It's a little bit like Grammy bait because it has so many of the things that should get that kind of recognition, but that's okay. I like a lot of Oscar bait movies. It's a powerful and meaningful album, but that also has great, catchy pop songs on it of many styles.
I whisper secrets in the backbeat. You make me cry, you make me happy.
And it is weird, the streaming numbers, I think because it's challenging on a genre level, there's a lot going on, and it isn't a typical Beyonce album or a typical anyone album, that maybe that's why the zeitgeist and the streaming aren't as strong as we might like, but it doesn't matter to the greatness if the world just needs to catch up with it.
That might be a thing that makes the Grammys like it more. But there was a lot of critique that there weren't Black country artists that got spotlight the way Shaboozey did on the album. And I was thinking about it this morning, and now we see how big Shaboozey has gotten since it happened. It's so crazy to watch him level up. You know how Drake has his touch. It's like the Beyonce touch. I think that there is something in the air that's she could have done that for more people. She could have done that for Black women in country. The Black women in country that are on the album contemporarily are all on one song, basically singing background besides Tanner Adele. But what I wonder, one, if the Post Malone song,
Boy, I let you be my Levi, so you can hug that ass all day long.
and the Miley song,
Say goodbye to the old me. Came out of nowhere, didn't give no warning. Pedal so heavy like the 2 most.
our Grammy bait too. I also wonder if she was just rather than looking like I'm just rounding up, no pun intended, all of the Black people in country right now, let me put all my eggs in the basket of an artist who I really think is the future. And maybe that's why Shaboozey is there and on 2 songs.
Yeah, she looks both prescient and influential there because she recognized she caught someone who was about to have their big breakthrough and also, of course, contributed to that great breakthrough in a big way. It's also, it's a country album, but it's so much more. A lot of people think the next album from her is going to be a rock album, but in some ways this is the rock album. There's so much rock, there's so much soul, there's all those nods to Chuck Berry. It's just, I'm still kind of working out all the layers and meanings and Easter eggs in there. Great album.
Yeah, great album. No notes.
And then another great album, I totally agree with you, Tyla's debut, right? Tyla.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Self-titled debut. Water comes out.
Make me sweat, make me harder, make me lose my breath, make me water, make me sweat.
Everybody's doing the dance. I think that the thing that like culturally we're starting to see is that like, yes, some songs are TikTok songs. And then some TikTok songs are introducing us to like our next like full-bodied holistic talents. There's so much push within the industry for artists to break in places like TikTok anyway, like it would have had to happen. Luckily for Tyla, she is actually a dancer. And so her album, I think, is that. It's danceable. It's also sensual and sweet. She has a lovely voice. She's not a powerhouse singer, but she has like a lovely, lovely voice. The songwriting is simple and beautiful. And I think she does so much of African music that makes its way into the mainstream is a fusion of a lot of different things. And so for her being able to pull from Amapiano, her dancing and influence from Bacardi, which is something that a lot of us were not familiar with in the US before she starts like hitting that dance and telling us about that part of her culture. And then Afrobeats and R&B, like it's just really well executed. And it's one you can, and because it's tight, I think we've seen some of the albums that I thought are the best this year. They're either tight, 11 to 14 songs, or they are entirely too long at 18 or more. Beyonce is the only one who gets a pass because literally all those songs are great. I don't know what I would have taken off that album, but I love that Tyla's like, I'm new. People don't know me. Let me have them get to know me in 35 minutes.
Yeah, and then the combination, as you said, the combination of sounds just feels really fresh and familiar enough for probably a lot of American ears at the same time. So it's just really, it's just like a really bright, catchy, gorgeous album.
Yeah, I think it builds on the energy that like Renaissance and honestly Nevermind built. I think that trend in music has continued and it's given shine to a lot of artists who make all different kinds of dance music. And so I feel like that trend has opened the door for this to be very successful and well received.
Yeah, I mean, she's very obviously a new superstar. I think that's very clear.
Yeah.
Normani, Dopamine.
I thought that I've been going crazy, but I'm doing better lately. I finally stopped.
She has been working on this album for a long time. She was, of course, in Fifth Harmony, and think about how many albums her bandmates have released in this time, and only now is this her debut. So what exactly went down there?
There was a shift in management that I think we might have broken that story. Her parents both had cancer in the middle of this. One of the parents, the cancer returning, I think one having a diagnosis for the first time. And I think that there was just a lot of pressure that she put on herself. I think a lot of us either know or are perfectionists, and this is like to the 6-year extreme. But I think that it turned out really worth it. It's a beautiful body of work. And especially, you know what, for the thing that Normani wanted to do, which was this nostalgia for 90s Monica, Brandy, Aaliyah era R&B, but also modern and pop and danceable and digestible. Like, you can spit that out. We've seen so many copies of that spit out over the years, but this really feels really intentional. Like, she didn't just lean into nostalgia. She created something new that has reverence.
And on the song Insomnia, she actually has Brandy.
'Cause every time you call me, it's giving me insomnia. I wish you didn't call me.
Yeah, and she's not even credited. It's just background vocals because Brandy was just so willing to do this.
Like you were saying, it shows that reverence for that era she loves while also sounding super, super modern.
I think that there's one song that gave me Max Martin that I didn't love. It's called Little Secret. And it's like I'ma take your man, but I don't want him because he's trash. And the girl is also trash. And I love that. The first verse is written really well, but the hook is so repetitive. It gives me like NSYNC Backstreet Boy throwaway.
Oh, let me up, 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 stage, bitch.
But her album is also not that many songs, and the songs are not that long, which, like, kudos to you for making that choice. I feel like I have to make sure that my reviews are not always just like how long the album was, but that really, if you're thinking about an album as a body of work that you sit down to listen to in one fell swoop, like, that's really important. Like pacing, curation, like all of that stuff is really important.
Absolutely. Which brings us to an album that's really good, but does have some problems in that area. It's stunningly long, but has a lot of good songs. Megan Thee Stallion's Megan.
Where them girls at? Where them girls at? Where them girls at? Where them girls at?
Yeah, 20 songs. I did feel it should have been 15 songs. But again, it's one of those things where people would probably disagree which 5 songs to cut. So it's tough. But it's a mix of some of her strongest stuff. I don't love the way it flows as an album either, but it has so much good stuff on it that I totally agree. It's your list, but I totally agree that it belongs there.
Yeah, I wish Megan would release something like More Life, like market it like More Life, because I feel like Drake calling that a playlist project or whatever really gave us the freedom to let it be incoherent. And I think that she wants to do these albums with these stories or these themes. And at this point, we're now, 3 albums in? I'm like, girl, if that's not your thing, either one, sharpen your curation so that point really hits home, or that doesn't have to be your thing, and give me a playlist project. Find an interesting way to frame what this hodgepodge is. But I do agree with your point that I think everybody would cut a different 5 songs. I wrote the review for Rolling Stone. I did not like Mamushi. It's now the most viral song. I think that's because of the dance and not necessarily the quality of the song, especially when there are other songs that are reverent to Japanese culture like Mamushi that I think are better.
I think I'm so sexy, every shirt I own is cropped. So many carats, diamonds, do the bunny hop. In the US or Japan, if he meet me.
I think if she would have really made the album that I think we're all waiting on from her with stronger curation. But this is her best work so far.
Yeah, and I love the continual air of defiance over all that we've spoken about before, all the completely unnecessary and inappropriate shit she's taken, and all the controversy that surrounds her and the way people use her name for no reason. I just love the way she addresses that on this album.
Traumazine, she was clearly very impacted. She was angry. Now she's just like, fuck, you suck. And she also sounds like she's having a great time. And I just got to see her at Broccoli City Fest. She looks like she's having a great time. And after the first 5 years in music that she had, I think she really deserves that. And it's nice to hear in the music because it makes the music light and refreshing and brings us back. This album, I think, had more of the essence of Tina Snow than anything she's released since. And that's the thing. True ride or die, hotties are wanting and clamoring for, is that Tina Snow essence. Oh my gosh. And then even Where Them Girls At, which Simone Biles at the Olympics just made this really cute TikTok to, even though the part is very racy. It's talking about WAPs and all that kinds of stuff.
Nails, check. Hair, check. Face, pretty. Pussy, wet. Walk in, don't.
Clearly Simone don't give a fuck no more. But yeah. I think that song has so much nostalgia for the era that Megan and I and people around our age grew up when in house parties down south. It samples these songs that used to just play at our parties. I went to college in North Carolina. They used to play at every function. And so I think that is the essence of this album. It's about having a good time.
And Tierra Whack's Worldwide Whack.
I can't sleep, I can't eat, I feel small, so petite, I act strong, but I'm weak.
This is weirdly, technically, I realize that her label is counting this as her debut, which it isn't really. What I will call her last album was amazing and was infamous for its really short mini songs. She's now making normal length songs. These are full length songs for the most part, and really super interesting production from start to finish. Some people complain that the Megan album was a little static with its production, and it is quite if you listen to those 2 albums next to each other, you're like, oh, whoa, this is much more wild production. This is incredible. But yeah, really great.
Yeah, I feel like the other thing too, the transition from Megan to Tierra, is this album is about her having the time of her life. This album by Tierra is influenced by her feeling suicidal. So
exactly.
It's very, very different things, very different bodies of work. It's interesting how those 2 albums fell into each other in our conversation. But yeah, I think that what she did, Whack World, that album that was of about 20 or so 1-minute songs at the time where remember the world before Instagram Reels, where you could could only post 1-minute videos, and she used that to her advantage. Like, I think that she really capitalized on that thing that was so captivating about that prior work and didn't repeat it, but built it into something different. Whack World, had a film with it. This album only had 3 music videos, I think, but it felt so cinematic. It still felt very Funhouse. Like, she has a Lego sponsorship, and that makes so much sense because her aura is like Funhouse, Child's Play built up, but there's also these very adult themes under it.
Yeah, she talked about this album and her whole career being delayed for a while by pretty serious depression and anxiety and suicidal thoughts. And so this is her kind of coming out of that. And the song where she most directly confronts that is 27 Club, the final track.
Looking for something to commit to
Tierra Whack is not a singer. Like, I don't know if you saw her Tiny Desk, but it's fun. It plays up on that too. She had the Philly Fanatic. It was a great time. But Tierra Whack is not a singer. I don't think she's ever purported to be. But the part where she is just bellowing the word suicide, but she's also saying the coach has me doing suicide. So it's like this cool, very hip hop double entendre is so striking. It's so dramatic. It's so like high school play. Like, I just think it's a really brilliant way to tackle a very difficult and personal topic.
And Flo Millie's Fine Ho Stay is just pure fun.
Stop blowing up my phone. I know that you mad you lost your hoe. Stop blowing.
Yeah, I think about that Sweetie meme where she's like, I really wanted something fun, something for the summertime, something for the girls to get ready to. Like, that's what this is. But the thing is, I feel like Flo Milli has never quite broken in the way that like Lotto or like Megan has, even though I think she has a lot of respect in fans, is because I think that her rapping was like, I think that there is something about her rapping in the past and also her curation, her albums that weren't just quite strong enough. Not SoundCloud in genre, but SoundCloud in like, let me just put out some music that I've made that I like. And this was the first time I've listened to a Flo Milli project from top to bottom and was like, this is incredible. I still think her pen can get sharper, but it's sharper here. I love the way she leans into this kind of like bratty, like mean girl thing without being like unlikable, which I think is really hard and really impressive. And yeah, I think that it really cemented with the Never Lose Me remix with SZA and then Cardi getting on it. Never Lose Me already, incredible song. She does it solo, stole the beat from some guys who I'm so sorry, I don't know y'all name because she stole y'all song. And then Yachty does a remix. And then she gets SZA and Cardi to do a remix. And every version is so good.
He's speeding no right, fall his hand on my coochie. He touching a millio coochie, doing good.
And I think that is emblematic of what that album is. She sounds very confident in herself, her abilities, her tastes on this album.
Yeah, and I wanted to mention the song Edible.
I ain't had no good dick and so much shit, I be scared of you. Know the cookie good, but it's gon' hit you like an edible. Tryna shoot the
Even more silly, even more fun with Gunna. A weed edible metaphor that I've not seen anyone use, so points for that alone.
Yeah, she's getting really creative. And I just want to give Gunna credit. I also saw him at Broccoli City this weekend. Like, he loves the girls. I don't know what happened in that jail. I hate that had to happen to him. I really deplore it. But I think the way that he's turned his career, like the vision that I can sense of it around is incredible. He had Flo Milli tour with him and was like, y'all not about to cut up the way that like y'all cut it up with Rico on Cardi's tour or other places that women have been disrespected in the presence of men in hip hop. I think he really loves the girls, and that's really nice to see. And they do well together on that song.
So Sexy Reds and Sexy We Trust. She's great. The things she says, I'm sometimes not sure about. It is what it is, but she's just tremendously entertaining.
She is, and I see people dipping in and out of love for her. The Trump thing for sure sucks, but also like as a black person who knows black people, I understand where she's coming from with that rhetoric. I think she's wrong, but I think that the thing that is both likable and unlikable about her are the same. I love this album. I think it's so much fun. Tay Keith is a genius producer. I talked to him at length about executive producing this album. And he saw in Sexy, like, not just like music that could be like very impactful culturally, but also a reflection of like where he's from and some of the people he knows. And I think that I don't like this aura that people have with their noses up to her, because it's like, you need the party girl. You need the turn up girl. You need the girl who's going to speak her mind and don't really give a fuck. And also take Keith turns around, and she's also incredibly hardworking and an incredible mother. And she's really been pushing her music. And she also is tapping into a very nostalgic, like MySpace, Kiss Me Through the Phone era of hip hop. But I think also sometimes it feels like it's not enough. Like, I watched her perform at this music festival I've brought up 3 times already. And I was like, oh, she did You My Everything, which I love. But it's like, yes, girl, give us nothing. It's just, there's not deep engagement with the art of performance.
Yeah, my impression is she's not quite there as a live performer.
Yeah, the stage
The
presence. The BET Awards is a good example. Incredible setup, incredible production, incredible theme, but like her herself. But I think that when you separate all of that, when you separate everything you know and think about Sexy Red from the music, and you just think about the music is hard. Music's just hard.
Yeah, no, it's super enjoyable album. What can I say? It's really good. Totally a very different artist. Very different artist.
Go to hell, you went fed. The white bitch do what I said. The truth been coming out fairs. My neck piece looking like pears.
School by Q, great rapper. Album is Blue Lips. It's an incredibly soulful, thoughtful, deep, but also really fun album. Great album.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man, he killed that. That's the thing with the TDE folks. They might take 6 years before they pop out, but they gonna pop out with some shit. So good. It's so good. I had the pleasure of speaking to Schoolboy Q at length too about this album when it dropped. And he's just in a place, you can hear it on the album, but you can also hear it when you speak to him. He's just in a place where he's like, yeah, man, I'm an adult. Like, I've been through so much. I'm not out here catering to whoever cannot understand or respect the life that I live and the choices I make. And I think the music reflects that. It's dark, it's intense, it's mature, but there's also a lot of levity. One of my favorite songs is, I'm going to sound like such a geek when I try to say this word, but Earn 101.
Right.
Like, damn, why I get a bitch like Yearn? I'm a drop top nigga, the sun won't burn when it lit like what, but the stripes ain't earned. I'm gonna get it right now, I ain't waiting.
It has that energy, that frantic energy that Collard Greens had, but it feels more mature. It feels more like street and like less pop. And he's just cool. Like, Schoolboy Q is just like a cool guy. And I feel like this album really encapsulates that while also showing like his heart.
And like you said, this is an album that isn't trying to pander to anyone. You know, it's him. He's at that place where he's doing. But I think that's part of the reason why he should even have a bigger audience. Because, you know, the real artists like that should be appreciated.
Isn't that like the paradox of like in hip hop, right? It's like the realer you are, the plainer you are, the quieter you are, or just the theatrics. We talked a lot about that. The less you are with the theatrics, just like the less audience you might have. But then also, like we've seen, like sometimes the theatrics really broaden you to everybody and people don't understand you or don't like it. And now you're dealing with so much hate. Like, I don't think there's ever been a thing that Schoolboy Q has done off the top of my head where everybody was like, fuck Schoolboy Q.
That's true. I guess I was also thinking, like, he apparently had a Toronto concert canceled because of spillover from the Kendrick thing. If you're going to have shit like that happen to you, you might as well also get some benefit from your proximity, I guess.
They said that the same thing has happened to Sir. I don't know. I don't purport to know why the shows are getting canceled, but Sir, his TDE label mate who makes R&B, also just had his Toronto show canceled as well.
Ira Star, the year I turned 21.
Now which kind life where I never see? I carry God so I fear nothing. Steady increase in the commands.
Oh yeah, let's get into the Afrobeats because the Afrobeats is my heart. But Ira is full-bodied, holistic pop star. And I think she's been that from the very beginning. Her big viral hit was Bloody Samaritan that people remember from a few years ago.
I'm feeling vibes on vibes. I'm a ticking dynamite. I blow your candle.
She hasn't popped like Tyla, although I think she has like a very dedicated and loving fan base. And her and Tyla, I believe, are like friends and contemporaries. There are a lot of different theories about that. Some of them are colorism. Ira is Nigerian. She is brown-skinned. Tyla is South African. She is mixed racial origin. She's called colored in South Africa. That created a firestorm of its own when she just told people who she was.
Right, and the Breakfast Club, it was a mess, yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, Ira deserves everything. So this album, I think, is a culmination of that. It's so well written. There are so many different themes. Her debut album was 19 and Dangerous. So this one is the year I turned 21, and you can hear her grow up on it. And she's always had a level of like maturity maturity and insight. But like the song that really just broke my heart and like also sewed it back together was The Kids Are All Right.
Hope no clouds are blocking the view.
It's the second to last song on the album. Her dad apparently passed away at some point. And so it starts off with her mom giving like a voicemail to Ira saying, your dad didn't get to enjoy the fruits of his labor. I want you to go on vacation. I'm going to the market and I'm about to buy very expensive food because we only have this one life. And then she sings a bit and you can just feel the sorrow and the longing. And that's how all her music is. It's so emotive and visceral, whether she's like being super cool, whether she's being super emotional. And then it transitions into messages for their dad from Ira and her siblings. And it's heartbreaking. There's a point in the middle, like buried in the middle, where it sounds like Ira's voice like cracks, like trying to speak to her dad about whether or not he's proud of her. And you can just tell, it's one, you can tell that it seems like from the man he is, he's very proud. And two, she just put her all into this album. And I feel like that's one of the points where you can really hear it.
So the artist is Rema and the album is Hace, and that's a Greek word for one. He's the one.
Yeah, and I think it's also a play on his longtime Instagram and Twitter handles. He is Rema.
All of my guys when they tell me everybody and you man. Who be that girl with the shake and keep it for bag me and one tie like that?
I actually have never heard anybody say the name of the album out loud. So he is Hace. Who knows how he's saying it, but it's a masterpiece. It's also really tight. I talked to Rema when he released the single Benin Boys with Shali Papi, who has yet to really break in the US, but is very much next up, a rapper from Nigeria. And they are both from Benin City in Nigeria, not the country of Benin, but Benin City. And was telling me about how he has the biggest Afro pop crossover record ever. Definitely Afrobeats crossover record ever in the Calm Down remix with Selena Gomez.
Baby, show me you can calm down, calm down. Dance with me and take the lead now, lead now.
His music prior to this album touched on a lot of things that were already popular in Afropop, like some SoundCloud rap influence, a little bit of South African influence, but not as much as recent times that we're hearing, like without the influx of Amapiano. But very like R&B-ish. Think like Wiz, think like Burna, like very like sensual, sexy, let's have fun, let's turn up, like Afropop, like or Afrobeats, like very much the fusion. And he was just like, I'm going to go into the studio with this album, he told himself, and I'm going to make what I like and the rest of the world can catch up. I'm not going to think about breaking Spotify streaming records. Most people in Nigeria do not stream their music on Spotify. We don't even really have a full grasp of the magnitude of how much of a star Rema is by those numbers. But this album is just like intense, like balls to the wall, like every drummer in the country is on this album, like Afro beats, like pulling from these very indigenous rhythms and also taking influence from the Afro beats that started to disseminate when the genre was newer and being named in the early 2010s. So you hear like old school Wizkid, D'banj, like P Square, like influence on this.
So Tems, and the album is Born in the Wild.
Oh yeah, definitely one of the best albums of the year.
I'm on my tunnel vision. I beat their allegation. I'm moving on the mission. I don't need to.
Tems' debut was a long time coming. She even opens it up with a recording of her mom being like, oh, Temilade, she doesn't even have a real album. Like talking about people, like hating on her. I think she really delivered. Even though I think the album is a few songs too long, probably 3 or 4 songs too long, and some songs are a little repetitive in nature, she is doing a lot of very diverse things on it. There's a song called T-Unit where she's rapping, and I think the name is super cute.
Slow it up, got the money up, got a new set, time to shut him up. Got my younger self ready for the war.
She's long been a hip hop fan. She's professed her love for Lil Wayne many a time. And so there's that, but there's also songs like Hold On and Burning that I think tap into like a SWV style of 90s R&B, which I think is so different from a Brandy or like a Monica.
Burning, burning and burning.
It's not like that sleek, sexy 90s R&B. It's like the very kind of like hip hop, like instrumental, lead driven 90s R&B. A little bit of like Mary I'm feeling on there. Love Me Jeje is one of my songs of the summer, which was the single. And it's so bright and airy, lots of guitar.
Love me Jeje, love me tender. You know you love turn me up like Nepa. Anything you want and I'ma do whatever.
She's an incredible talent. Great, unique voice. I wrote for Rolling Stones, No One Sounds Like Tems. The Cut ran something like that as their headline for their profile of her later. Like, you'll never mistake her voice for anyone else's. And I think that she really took her time to make a very special debut.
And yeah, 4 years since she started, really. So she's been building up to this.
Yeah, she has. And the thing, too, is like her EPs were fantastic. Her debut EP is like so great. Like, literally, it's just like that is a true EP in that it's very few songs. And this is very many songs. But she was already off to a great start.
Construction outside, woke us up about 15 times. You took the gun and shot it up.
So Mustafa and the album is SNL.
Yeah, also more of an EP. I actually don't know why he called it that. It makes me think of Rami Youssef's SNL monologue in which he addresses the ongoing slaughter in Gaza. And Rami and Mustafa are actually very good friends. And so there are a few songs on this album and they really pull into, he calls it like Arabian musical influences. And on this song that I really love in particular, Gaza is Calling, it's almost eerie because he wrote the song in 2020 and shot a small film for it as well that stars Bella Hadid.
What drugs did you take to look at me that way? Don't take it again.
And he wrote it about a childhood friend who he calls like his first love, like as a friendship, who was Palestinian, who had come to his Toronto housing project from Gaza. And eventually it seems like they ended up in different sort of like neighborhood sects or just lived very different lives. Mustafa is a folkish singer. He started off as a poet. He's well known as Mustafa the Poet, but he does it about growing up in these terrible hoods. And so he has a lot of songs that are like about like these hood guys, but they're beautiful folk songs. And so this song he wrote about a childhood friend where it seems like they got separated in some way, but the pain in it reflects like what you can think and what we can see Palestinians are going through right now in Gaza.
So the artist is Amindi and the album is Lover. That's LUVR for anyone looking for it.
Yeah, Amindi's dope. I first came to know of Amindi. She is like if you like Erykah Badu, if you like hip hop soul, if you like the internet, if you like Steve Lacy, if you like No Name. She's a singer, but there's like a little bit of a rap edge to her delivery. And she just dropped this EP that she says is about the way that she treats like flings, like their real relationships. But my favorite song on it is called Fine With Me. And it's like the song where she seems most clear that it's a fling and most accepting of that. Every time we hear people make music, that sounds like there are real instruments being played on it. That sounds like there was like a jam session from which it was born. Like that just really does something for my spirit, especially when it's well executed. You can do that and it can suck, but this is very good.
So that is your list of your favorite albums of the year so far. And then we also have some songs to talk about.
First song is very silly. It is Grippy by J. Cole and Cash Cobain. It's a remix of Cash Cobain's song Dunk Contest.
She like my kick game, and when you mean on kick game, I put her front row to Nick game. Now she in my phone with a nickname. It's Grippy.
And mind you, this song came out like mid-rap war. So at this point, J. Cole has dropped out of the rap war between Kendrick and Drake, not like us.
Certainly one of the top 2 smart decisions to drop out of 2024.
Oh my God, that's so funny, Brian. Maybe we should do a musicians on musicians or like a politicians on musicians, and it should be J. Cole and Biden talking about dropping out of things.
Smart decision making with Joe Biden and J. Cole.
Oh my God. Yeah. But anyway, it was just so funny because Not Like Us is already out at the time this song comes out. And it is J. Cole being real horny on Maine. It's a very silly song, but he's such a good rapper. Like this song was very polarizing. It started a TikTok trend where people were like making fun of how nerdy he sounds when he decides that he nicknames a girl in his phone Grippy because of body parts. And it's so corny. J. Cole's sex raps have always been corny. Like much love to Planes. I love Planes. I think that it's a great song, but there's lots of controversy every time J. Cole chooses to rap about his penis. I just think that it's fun. Like it was a good way to come out of all of that. And Cash Cobain, of course, is an incredible producer, not only an artist, but a producer. And he makes these very ethereal, if you like Uzi and like video game music and also 2000s R&B and drill. If you like all those things, Cash Cobain is your guy.
And then, listen, I'm on record. It should win Record of the Year and Song of the Year. And it's definitely the Song of the Summer and Song of the whole year. It's so much bigger than the song that definitively won a rap beef. It's just a monster song.
Monster on the beat, ho, Debo, any rap nigga, he a freak throw, man down, call like Amber Lambs, tell him breathe, bro, nail a nigga to the cross, he walk around like
Not like us, Kendrick Lamar.
Yeah, man.
What can we even say at this point?
What can we even say? It's just, I feel like every day the lore of this song gets bigger from us talking about TDE artists not being allowed to perform in Toronto, allegedly, and like the fallout, the way the fallout has touched other artists like Lil Yachty. It is just like a culture shifting song, like in no small terms, but also it's one of those songs that plays on the radio. I like to listen to the radio in my car because I'm old and live in the suburbs, and it plays 3 or 4 times if I'm driving for a couple of hours. And every time I'm like, you know, the white folks was using black folks to get them richer, like every single time.
It's just, I mean, it's really one of those songs that every single time you hear something new, because it's so, I've said before, it's dense lyrically, but it's also dense sort of musically in the sense that there's like a million little hooks in the song musically. There's so many catchy little bits, like enough for like 20 songs. It's just Kendrick's casual brilliance, or not so casual / not so casual brilliance of just putting so much into this song on every level.
But you know what I think more and more about now that we're like really full steam into election season is Kendrick is not like Trump in any way, but this song is very Trumpian in that it's very post-truth. There are lots of things on it that are true, but it's like pedophilia is a huge accusation to make and has a very specific definition. And like Joe Budden and some folks were talking about how Drake's team apparently, according to some information that they've gotten, I think they were talking to Mark Lamont Hill, has gotten information that they are really frustrated. They're not frustrated that Drake lost the beef. They're frustrated that they're all being portrayed this way. But it's just, whatever you can say, the catchiest, like you said, there are a million little hooks. Like I think at this point right now, and this happened with both of them. And I think another Kendrick song that I love, 616 in LA, actually speaks to this even more. But it's not about all the time what is right, like on its face, like what is correct. But I feel like it's what is right morally. I think the moral grounding of the songs that Kendrick made were far superior to the ones that Drake did.
If I were to take it seriously, that bit of the song seriously for a minute, it's messed up to tar Drake with that particular label when we all know that isn't actually the case. It's actually like one of the worst things you can do to someone. What I hope is that people are not taking that part literally and more like as just basically a fuck you rather than a serious accusation of like one of the worst things a human being can be.
Yeah.
And because if people were really taking it seriously, they'd say, you know, arrest Drake. Like they would say investigate Drake, but he's not that. He's not, it's just not true. And I think one of our colleagues, Jeffy Haza, pointed out that it has a little bit of that Pizzagate conspiracy thing, which is one of the worst things in the world, that stuff like that, just to make stuff up. That's all terrible. And yet it's still such a great song. And I don't know.
And there's also so much truth in it. I think that last verse where he was like, sit down, let me put y'all on game. That verse about Drake, even though there are like somewhat complicated racial dynamics at play, there is this artist that swoops in. We always talk about the Drake effect on other artists, but there is an effect on Drake he has benefited so much from his proximity to 21 Savage, to Future, to 2 Chainz. Like he has. And so that's one of the things that like makes it an excellent song and also makes it easy to root for. It's like at the root, even if some of the claims are a little outlandish, mind you, Drake has done some things that are very questionable in regards to, we've talked about it on the album For All the Dogs, for example, in regards to the age of the women he engages with and the age gaps. But I think that 616 in LA, which I think is another really great song, makes this point even better. Because on this song, Kendrick is like, have you ever thought OVO is working for me? I have moles in your camp. And Drake then turns around on a song and is like, you don't have moles, I planted them. And it's like, we will never really know the truth as like outsiders, but that didn't matter. Like this beef was like post physical, tangible evidence. And this beef was like very much in the present of what I feel to be true. And also ideologically, what I believe to be true matters more.
Fake bully, I hate bullies. You must be a terrible person. Everyone inside your team is whispering that you deserve it. Can't Tootsie slide up out of this one, it's just gonna resurface.
I mean, 616 in LA, which is also on your list very justifiably. I think what's funniest of the brilliance of that song is you're in a rap beef with someone and in the middle of it, but I live in circadian rhythms of a shooting star, the mannerisms of Raphael, I can heal or give you art, but the industry's cooked as I pick the carcass apart. He won this several times, but certainly when you can just drop that into your rap beef, like you pretty much just won anyway, as far as I'm concerned.
The song was also like, I'm peaceful, I'm happy. This is his first time being like, I'm tucking my kids into bed. And he says something in the song that is to the effect of, he's the definition of peace. Tell me who gonna stop me. I come from love. And it's, yeah, like you saw that in the concert, in the Pop Out Juneteenth concert. This is not just about being better than Drake or being a better MC and a better human being than Drake. This is about unifying the people that I love. And this is about me looking out for the places that I am from. And I think that's one of the things that really helped him here, because he was so rooted in a value system in this. And I think 616 is like one of the first like beautiful and insidious ways that he shows that. The sample is Al Green's What a Wonderful Thing Love Is, which Drake's uncle, essentially one of his dad's cousins, like helped write. And it's nasty. It's very nice nasty, as people might say in like the South.
Yeah. Again, I think we know who won this beef.
Oh yeah. Harvey Mason, give the man his statue and let's just keep on moving.
I'm trying my hardest.
Yeah, so Trying My Hardest by Sir.
Yeah, since we're just like in the TDE camp thinking about them, Sir is an incredible R&B singer, really released, I think, a modern classic album in Chasing Summer a few years ago. As TDE artists are wont to do, did not release an album for many years in between that, and then revealed to one of our colleagues, Morgan Jordan, who wrote an amazing profile of Sir for us, and also in various interviews and on this album, that he needed to go to rehab. He was abusing drugs and alcohol. He was abusing sex. He was cheating on his wife. And I think that the album, it's one that got much better over time. I think it necessitated those interviews because the storytelling was a little opaque, even though Sir is influenced by like John Mayer and also Stevie Wonder. So the songs are very musical, really rich, comes from a family of church musicians. But it was really important that he did the interview circuit to really tell the story behind these songs. But one song that I think was very clear on its own is Trying My Hardest. If you like D'Angelo, if you like Brown Sugar, it has that vibe. But he said he wrote it in rehab. He recently brought his wife up on stage where the show was not canceled and sang it to her. And he's just saying like all the little things that he's doing to try to improve his life, like taking a breath. I'm only smoking weed now. I'm thinking about the ways my behaviors impact others. And it's really earnest because you're not quite sure it's good enough, but he is saying that he's trying. And there's something like really beautiful about that.
Yo. First they love me, then they hate me, then they love me again. I'm scratching my head.
Another really good one, Message in the Bottle by Absol.
Oh my God. Yeah. Absol is one of the TDE artists that lower profile even than Schoolboy Q, but like people really love him. On interlude in this particular song, there's a clip of Joe Budden talking to someone else and saying that Absol is eclectic. He's sick. He makes unique, different music. He doesn't really give a fuck about none of the shit that y'all are talking about. Because somebody said like, why isn't Absol as big as the other TDE rappers? Also, this album came after a long break, time away, during which he was suicidal as well. He already had lived through the suicide of a girlfriend many years ago. And this is just like a really resounding return to form for him. Absol can be very dense. He can be very conspiratorial, lots of religious imagery. And I like this song because it is all of that, but in a much more digestible way. It feels really contemplative and earnest while still being like very technically impressive. And also the production. Absol songs can also be unsettling. And I think that this song really eases in. It's warm, even though it still has an air of seriousness about it.
Look, me versus you and you know they picking. Cheap and expensive, you know the difference. You know that it's hitting, you know what it's giving. Hair, nails.
And just a really great Cardi B song, Enough, Miami.
Yeah, honestly, Cardi B, I wrote her cover story. Don't know when the album's coming. There is a baby coming. There is a divorce potentially coming, one that has been filed for. But I think that this song is a really good indication of who Cardi B is and where she's going. I think that it's true to the things that we love about her. It's silly. The fact that she's saying, I'm in Miami. I pull up on a cruise ship. You're in Miami. 4 hoes to a room shit is like hilarious to me. And there's a lot of like quips like that in the song. I think that people are like, oh, Cardi's not popping like she used to. She's not topping the charts. I think that there's just like a lot of competition right now, but she's still really great. And this song is one of my favorites of the year.
Yeah, it's a reminder of what she's good at, which is a lot of things.
You make it hard to talk about you. Like what I see, so I'm working my move.
You give me
A different song for Lotto, Big Mama.
Yeah, it's way different. It sounds like her little sister has been rumored to be spending a lot of time with Drake, and it sounds a bit like a Drake song, like the melody in it in the first half. And I wonder if it's just influenced by that sound, who Drake may have also borrowed from someone else. But it's cool to see her try that because it's so different for her. I think that there's a thing with the girls like Lotto, like the baddies, the rap girls that are like very sexual, very confident, very like party, money, men oriented, that they can be one dimensional. And I think that a lot of the girls keep showing you that they are not just that. I think they either do that one dimensional thing very well, or they show you that they have more range. And I think Lotto is dipping into that. I think she's just an incredible MC. I think Lotto is an MC. Lotto can really rap. But so it was nice to see her lean into this more softer R&B bag, but then the song flips and it's very much like trap, like crunk fusion, talking her shit. And I think that it's really good. It's a good omen for her album that's coming out.
Hey, black flag all on my mic. I've been known to spend a lot like Bob Barker, the price is right.
This is a really interesting song from Denzel Curry featuring that Mexican OT, and it's called Black Flag Freestyle.
Yeah, that Mexican OT is one of like my favorite rappers to emerge, and I don't sit and listen to him very often, but every time I see him come across my timeline, I smile because he's like Texan as hell, really great sense of flow and cadence. And Denzel Curry is such a shapeshifter. I think that Denzel Curry is like a different person every album, and I think that he's from Florida, he's from Miami, which we don't traditionally think of as Southern, but he's able to draw those connections and then also dip into that Mexican OT's Texan bag and really meld with his style in a way that doesn't feel like he's just like putting on a costume, but that he like really respects the history of Texas rap. Double XL, that Mexican OT was one of Double XL's freshmen, one of the most exciting choices for a list that increasingly becomes less exciting. Double XL called him the Lone Star Luchador, which I just think is super fun.
You're ruining me for everybody. I wake up in the morning.
And this is a ballad that I had totally missed until I saw it on your list. It's by Usher and Feels, and the song is Ruin.
Yeah, this kind of started picking up steam around the time Usher was slated to do the Super Bowl, which he absolutely killed. It's cool because it's Usher doing Afrobeats with Feels, who has the really popular song Finesse. That was like one of those songs of the summer, a summer or two ago. But it's still like really more heavily leans into R&B than Afrobeats. It's quiet. It feels like rain. It's just a beautiful song. I think it's a reminder of like why Usher is Usher.
Exactly. And so Nena's EC mix.
I know you're ready, but at least just play it cool. You say you know your shit like ecstasy, right?
And cool beat. It's like a kind of somewhere between drum and bass and UK garage. Cool song.
Yeah. Nena is completely different from all of these artists and that we've discussed so far, and that she's like very much an up and comer. I first got in tune with her living in Atlanta. Like she's from Atlanta. She's first generation American though. She's Nigerian. She calls herself the Nigerian Nightmare on her, but she makes R&B. So I think that's just like such a fun name for someone who makes such soft music. But she's really a talent. Like really cool, interesting voice, SZA-esque songwriting that's earnest, maybe to the point of like embarrassment. But she can also be like really like sexual and sensual. She can do a lot of different things. So this is a remix of her song Ecstasy, which is like a calm, like sexy love song. She does like a cute like striptease, I think, in the music video for it. But this flip, like you said, has all this UK dance influence. And it's just like really, I think, refreshing in the scope of like dance music that I've been listening to this summer, because that's one of my favorite sounds.
It's funny, we were talking about UK garage and I pronounce it the American way, and there's actually an online debate about whether, because it's a British genre that is mostly spoken about by British people, they say like more like garage, and there's actually a debate about whether Americans should use the British pronunciation even though that's not how we pronounce it. I personally feel weird saying garage, but and I saw people both making fun of Americans who say garage and saying that actually that's how you should say it in deference to the British origin of the genre. But just to know, everyone, we've thought about this.
There was a sidebar.
Yeah, we did think about it. But anyway, yeah, same word, different pronunciation.
We're debating, but yeah, whatever it is, she's doing it very well.
No time, moon so bright, moving my hips from left to right. My, check my phone, feel it in my belly when I drive home.
finally, we have a song by Remy Wolf, Cinderella.
Yeah, this is like another one of my like kind of indie girls. Nena was once signed to or working with RCA. She's an independent artist as of late. But Remy Wolf is someone that we at Rolling Stone have really been keeping our eyes on. Our colleague Larisha Paul wrote an incredible profile of her. And she just released an album. And this song is my favorite from it. It was released prior to. It's called Cinderella. And it's just so funky. I just took a cabin trip for my best friend's bachelorette party. It was a joint wedding party celebration. Nice. And it sounds like what that was, like hanging by the lake, hanging by the pool, drinking several seltzers, just having a good time in the woods. I love it. It's like she's described as like an alt pop artist, but this feels more like psychedelic rock that like leans into pop, like not Tame Impala. It's a little more poppy, but it's just so good. And I'm really excited. She's one of those artists that like I would need to see live.
All right. So much great music. Thanks so much for making this list for us.
Thank you for having me, man. I hope the rest of the year goes as well as the first half.
And that's our show. We'll be back next week. In the meantime, subscribe to Rolling Stone Music Now, wherever you get your podcasts. And please leave us 5 stars and a nice review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, because that's always appreciated. But as always, thanks so much for listening, and we will see you next week.